Órale, what's happening? Saludos al compa Geno Ray, el guapo, the one and only, the people's champ. Bienvenidos a Native as it can be. Woo!
Who's the podcast host that you love the most? Coming to you live from coast to coast. Call me Thunderlip, Spaceman, or G. It's just me being native as I can be.
Hello, everybody. This is Geno Ray, the host of Native as I Can Be, the podcast that explores it's an exploration for people like me and others that feel like they're living between cultures. I have a very, very, very special guest today. Her name is Dr. Beverley Jacobs. She is all the way on the East Coast right now, staying up late for me. First of all, how are you doing? How was your day today?
Oh, I'm doing pretty good. At a crazy busy day as usual. My days are nonstop busy.
Yeah.
I actually did a presentation this morning on assertions of sovereignty from our leadership. It was the staff at Wilfrid Laurier University in Waterloo, so it went pretty good.
Nice.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna try and say this, and then you can correct me. The Kanyakahek, is that
Kanyakahaga.
Kanyakahaga? Oh, and then in parentheses Mohawk.
Yeah.
Six Nations.
The K's are pronounced G's.
Oh, okay.
Kanyakahaga.
Okay. Kanyakahaga. The Six Nations of the Grand River Territory, the Bear Clan. I deal with a lot of mixed race people and multicultural or international adoptees. Have you always been pretty grounded in your indigenous traditions?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I grew up in my community and raised very traditionally with our longhouse ceremonies.
Mm-hmm.
But I also know the impacts. I have cousins and family who were impacted. My grandmother went to residential school, so her whole my whole matriarchal family was impacted by that. And so she ended up being very Christian and moved into the city of Detroit, and had a big family. So my mother and all of her siblings, they grew up in the city of Burlington, Ontario. And yeah, so I saw the difference between how I grew up. My mother was the only one of her siblings actually to marry a traditional man, and the rest married out. And oh yeah, I have family all over North America on my mother's side.
Okay. Yeah, I always find that interesting, and because I was discussing assimilation with my guest last night, and for better or worse, the parents think in some cases that they're doing the right thing by, my guest last night was adopted, and her adopted white parents basically said, yeah, you're Indian, but just forget all that. It'll be easier if you just try to start acting and being white. It'll be easier for you. And it's, they think they're doing the right thing, but it's a blind spot where removing somebody from their culture and asking them to ignore it is problematic and causes long-term damage, I think.
I think so too, like generationally.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I have cousins, blonde hair, blue-eyed, live in the city, never raised with culture or tradition. And, I could see it growing up even as a kid. And, we'd go visit. My mother was still very close with all of her siblings and her mom. So, we'd visit all the time in the city and Detroit and Windsor, Ontario, and Ohio. Yeah, and I saw, like I said, I saw the difference growing up, how going to the city, and it was so different. I could really tell the difference, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that was me. My mom is white, my dad is Native, and I grew up with her. And she never told me not to be proud of being Native or not to express it, but she didn't know how I was supposed to do those things. And
Right.
so I didn't know how to do those things. And so then when I would hang out with my indigenous side, I would feel really out of place, even though
Oh, yeah.
I would feel love and connection, but there would be like, I don't feel like I'm acting right. I'm not doing what they
Oh,
do, or
yeah.
and same with powwows too. I go to a powwow and go, wow, these are real Indians around here. These guys know what they're doing. And
Yes.
it took me a while to figure out that I'm Indian because I'm Indian, and
Yeah.
I love it either way.
Yeah, that's right.
Um, so you're currently an assistant professor, of
Associate professor.
associate. Yeah, I'm trying to read my own handwriting. At the University of Windsor, and former president of the Native Women's Association of Canada. Um, and in 2004 to 2009, advocating for families of missing and murdered Indigenous women. And then I know I'm going to have a hard time with this one. Your name means she's visiting. How do you say that?
Goenkyuse.
Kawekuse. Um, how did that name come about, and what does it mean to you?
Yeah, well, when our children, when our kids are born, they're actually born. We have birthing ceremonies, and so as soon as many times, it's not always, but many times the babies are named immediately. But I wasn't named probably until maybe I was 5. Um, because actually my parents lived in the city of Burlington, Ontario, and we moved to Six Nations community when I was 4. Um, and so I knew this city life as up to 4 years old.
Yeah,
Um, I didn't know really what that meant, but um, so so usually it's our clan mothers who name our children. So my mother went to one of the Mohawk clan mothers and obtained a name for myself and my younger brother. And it's a ceremony. So the ceremony, you're given your name, and that's what's acknowledged in the ceremony to the others, to the public, right?
yeah,
So that's how you're named. And so my name, Goenkyuse. So you're given a name, and as you're growing up, you're figuring out what it means, how personal it is to you, and your journey in
yeah,
in life, right?
yeah,
So my name means she's visiting.
yeah,
And so it's been a very powerful journey.
yeah,
um, Visiting, internationally, visiting Indigenous people and non-Indigenous people around the world.
yeah,
Um, and so visiting physically, people visit, having the opportunities to be able to travel and visit all over the world. But my name also means that I have spiritual visitors. So
really,
yeah, uh, and many times they help to guide the work. They help to guide me,
yes,
like everything that I do, and even help me with the words that I need to say. So it's been that journey to hear them,
yeah,
to listen and pay attention. There's been things in my path that it's like, pay attention, like
yeah,
listen to what we're trying to help you and tell you and to guide you in your journey. So there's been a couple of moments where I wasn't paying attention and I got hurt.
yeah,
So um so I started to really pay attention, and that was in like 2000. I literally got hit in the head with a shovel, like right here,
yikes,
and right. So that's like what they call it, your third eye.
right,
So it was literally split right open, It's like, okay, this is how we're gonna tell you to friggin' pay attention.
Yeah.
And uh yeah, so since 2000, it was a major shift in really paying attention and listening and my whole I mean, I was already, graduated law school and finished my master's in law, and so I was sorting through, uh, I guess my the next steps in my life, um, and so that journey to wake up
Yeah.
spiritually, right? I was dealing also with a lot of my own traumas growing up.
Mhm.
So being, that cycle of violence in my life, and being um, sexually molested as a child. So from the age of 4, probably till I was 10 or 11. So dealing with all of that and the healing of that, that was also I was really working hard on that.
Yeah.
And so that happened to me in 2000. It was like I went into a major depression.
Mhm.
Uh,
After
and
the
yeah,
yeah.
after the hit in the head, because I had questioned that spiritual aspect and
Yeah.
wondered why they didn't help me. It was like, how could you let that happen to me? I've been working really hard
Yeah.
on my journey on wellness and my healing and uh and it was funny because right after that it was um like dreams and messages, and it was like they were showing me in this one dream. It was like slow motion, like from every
Yeah.
step that I took, and they were showing me, we were trying to tell you to go this way
Yeah.
rather than go this way where the shovel and the fight was happening.
Yeah.
And you were so stubborn that you didn't pay attention because we were showing you. And they literally, in this slow motion of my steps, I could see my car right
Yeah.
this way. And so then it was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. I understand now. So
Yeah.
ever since then, so paying attention to those spiritual visitors
Mhm.
and um and their messages.
Yeah. My conversation last night was with a medium, this native medium, and one of the points that we had in the conversation was, um, I've had contact with ancestors, and my dad died couple of years ago, and me and him were really close. And I had a son who died when he was 7.
Oh
And
wow.
I still connect with him a lot, but it's always more of like a physical sensation. But it's something I can tap into almost anytime I want, and it'll be like, I'm struggling, I miss you, I'm feeling some kind of way, and I'll feel hands on my shoulders. Or one day I was laying in bed and I could feel my son resting his head on my
Uh-huh.
chest. And but what um what me and her name is Melissa, what we discussed is that ability to receive messages or guidance, or even just a visit from a past relative. It should
Mhm.
not be like this supernatural way out concept. It should be something that if you're grounded enough and paying attention enough, you should be able to do anytime
Yeah.
you want. Um,
Mhm.
and I don't know if that's the native in us that
Yeah,
feels.
it's a connection,
Yeah.
that direct connection to our ancestors, and that's what makes, I think, us different as indigenous people is ceremony. So
Mhm.
feeding our ancestors, right? So that's something that we've always done. Um, and knowing when they need to be fed, also they tell you, you
Yeah.
know, we need that ceremony, and things happen where um, they literally, you drop your food on the floor, or um sometimes there's those the push. So maybe somebody gets sick, or somebody has a real, even a dream about them. So yeah, so then that's the time that they're telling us that they need to be fed, and also to give thanks, right? Because they're
Oh
helping
yeah.
us. They're helping us on the other side. Like, they're not very far away. So helping us on the other side, and so feed them to give thanks to them for helping us in this crazy life.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
crazy physical lifetime.
Yeah. I do every night of gratitude, and I call it my conversation with the one, because praying to God sounds really heavy to me, and it's not how I was brought up. I wasn't brought up as a Christian, so it just seems
Mhm.
really like kind of, nothing against people that pray to God. I love y'all anyway, but to me, it just doesn't sit well. So I call it this conversation with the one. And
Oh yeah.
every night it starts with a gratitude, even if it's the hardest day I've ever had. I'm like, well, I still have a house. I still have clean water. I still have food. I have access to things a lot of people don't. And then I go, you know what? Okay, I'm right. I'm all right. I'm all right. And
Yeah.
thank you for having my back all day, and whatever. But it's important
Yeah.
to the point it's hard to fall asleep without it. Um, that's so cool. I'm so glad that you brought that up. That's really cool, because
Yeah.
I hadn't wrote any notes about anything like that. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, that wouldn't come out in any of the paperwork or anything that's
yeah,
online, right?
right. And
I
so,
don't usually talk about it either. So for some reason it came out.
yeah,
But it's
so
part of my name, right? I was describing my name, and so those spiritual visitors have that acceptance and that thanksgiving for them all the time, and that journey, even with the MMIW, those women, they came to me
mhm,
um many times, and it was hard, difficult, um because some of them were just so angry, and right, and just sad, like, just so, because there were just different impacts of colonization, and whether it was residential school or the child welfare system or the criminal legal system that they get caught in, and all of those colonial systems,
yeah,
and so that, yeah, their messages of, also of Thanksgiving, think many times there was, like, um, celebrations, because we were getting the attention of the public,
yeah,
which is what was needed, and, um, so there were also many times we had those messages. I had those messages. I say we because there were many,
yeah,
um, that were, that were talking, and I had to listen,
mhm,
and yeah, so it was, and it happened over a long period of time. So I started the journey with them in 2002, actually, when, I did work as a consultant with Amnesty International in Canada,
mhm,
and we did the report, the Stolen Sisters report,
yeah,
and I traveled across the country, and, talked to families, in their communities mostly, um, and story after story, and violence after violence, and death after death, and, missing Indigenous women, and there were, families in trauma because, every day they were looking for them or waiting to hear from them.
yeah,
Yeah, so it was a constant uh relationship with them on that spiritual side, that spiritual aspect of it, and the emotional, also, because it was rough.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I was gonna ask later, but I think it's a good time to ask now. So, um, you had the bump on the head, and then that's when it was after this is when you got. I'm sorry, bump on the head makes it sound really minor.
It
It was,
was it was wicked. It was a wicked. It was like I had to get plastic surgery.
oh, okay, all right,
Yeah, that
yeah,
was And I remember being in, an emergency in the bed, and people would come, the doctors and the nurses would come and take a look, and even their faces were like, whoa.
Yeah.
So, and I didn't want to look at it. And,
Yeah.
and it was, so it was pretty wide open.
Oh gosh. Okay. Well, I was going
Yeah.
to ask how, if you felt like working with, and I want to get into that report you wrote as well, working with MMIW, when did it sort of start to feel like did it start to feel like that was what you are here to do? And this is what you're going to spend decades and decades. Was it soon after this accident happened?
It
And,
was,
and
I never thought about that before, but it was only like 2 years after that. Um, so and in those 2 years, there was a lot of, again, more healing,
Mhm,
on my journey, and it took me all over, different, like even spiritual spaces,
mhm,
um, like the mountains in Alberta, the Rocky Mountains, and it was like the stones were talking to me this time, and they wanted me to look at. I had this whole, again, it was a dream, and ended up from the dream knowing where I needed to go. So from the dream, it was like I knew I was in the mountains, so I knew where I had to go. I knew the exact space, the exact spot that I needed to go,
yeah,
and had my own little ceremony there, to address, my, this great big scar in the middle of my face. And, I was really upset about it and worried about it and worried what people were going to think about, when they see me, this big battle scar in the middle
yeah,
of my forehead. And, and so when I sat in ceremony, so they told me, to bring my medicines and my blanket, and just sit on the ground and pay attention to everything around me. And this was in Morley, Alberta. I had been there before, so I knew where I needed to go. And so yeah, it was like as I was sitting there and looking at the mountains and the rocks it was along this river, there, and it was like the rocks were saying, you you look at us.
mhm,
You can see all the lines. You can see the lines on us, and look how beautiful that is,
yeah,
right? Like, just that beauty in everything that they are. And they said, that's how you are now. So
beauty and the
just
flaws.
yeah, just accept that
Mhm,
that's what happened, and that, you had no control over that. And that was part of the healing also about the sexual violence, is that I had no control over that, and that wasn't my
mhm,
fault.
yeah,
And so that was a major part of that healing and acceptance of, um not being vain, like, not,
mhm,
not, worrying about, what I look like,
yeah,
and that it's deeper than that. That spirit is inside. It has nothing to do with the physical.
yeah,
And so that was a huge teaching.
mhm,
And, um, and in my dream before I went there were these eagles that were circling above. And as I was sitting there and paying attention, I'm bawling, like I was crying real hard.
yeah,
And, and then these eagles, just like in the dream, these eagles came and they circled around me, and they went to the water, and they dropped a feather in the river in front of me.
yeah,
And it was like things like that. Like, that's just one example of many that has happened to me over time, and the acknowledgement and the thanks from the natural world.
yeah,
And that's powerful to receive that right from right from the eagle itself. So I walked down to the river and it just came floating right along the shore.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that was again, another big lesson, a big understanding about the violence and healing and moving forward and acceptance. Like just so it was so, and things happened fast, like from 2000 till that 2002, and I was asked by Amnesty um, to start doing the work with the families, and it being it was, violations of human rights and
Mhm.
the whole mandate of Amnesty International and bringing it to an international stage. So I don't think I would have been able to do that work if I didn't do my own healing and being put in a whole leadership role, right? That whole leadership. So my journey with the families across Canada with Amnesty International, and I had to educate them about who Amnesty is. They're going to share their story on an international stage. And are they willing to share their stories? Because at that time, nobody was listening. No
Mhm.
one was paying attention. And they were in trauma and they were doing all the work. They were the ones that were doing the searches. They were the ones that were putting the posters up
Yeah.
in, city to city. And um, even in their own communities, no one was paying attention.
Mhm.
And so, um, when I had started this work, so I had already been up to that point working nationally in different communities. And my recommendation to Amnesty was that I needed to spend time with the families in order for them to trust me and to trust Amnesty to share their stories. And um, so I did that and spent, sometimes I spent 4 or 5 days with the family. Sometimes I just, went for a couple of hours and they trusted me immediately and shared their stories immediately. And many times to this day, I'm like still really close to a lot of those families because of the intensity of the emotional, um, their emotions and what they were sharing with me, and, things that were so, um, intimate to them,
Yeah.
because it wasn't just also either the missing, mother or daughter or granddaughter or auntie. Um, it was, you know, other family members who went missing, or other families that went to residential school or were victims of violence. So it was a whole story like that
Mhm.
of every family.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that was a really amazing, powerful journey. And in the beginning, when no one was listening, no one, if it was in the media, um, if it was in the media, it was a really racist
Yeah.
article or nothing written, um, and or how they had described this a young woman being murdered, like it was her fault, like an Indian woman being found murdered. Oh,
Right.
she was on the street, so obviously that was her fault.
Right.
Um, so those were the stories, and the reactions, and police as well. It was like they didn't care. They didn't
Yeah.
give a rat's ass
Yeah.
um,
Well,
about these women and about their journey and about the investigations of them being missing. So it was always the families that did the work
so
initially.
you
So it was so frustrating in the beginning. And So working with Amnesty, traveling across the country, and then it was released. The Stolen Sisters report was released in October 2004.
So you
And
traveled and you visited the families and
yeah,
compiled this report, which you then gave to Amnesty International, which was then put out for consumption. And
yeah,
what I had read was the report was about the radicalized and sexualized violence towards Indigenous women in Canada. And as you mentioned, the failure of law enforcement.
right.
So, so what did Amnesty do at that point with that report? And do you
So
think did it have the effect that you intended it to have?
it did.
Yes. Okay.
Because it was because Amnesty International is an international organization, and the whole intention was to identify the violence against Indigenous women as a human rights issue, and uh, and that was successful in bringing that message. Um, and it was also the support for the families. So when the families came forward, because we identified many different families, and their stories were part of the report. Um, so they felt that their voices were finally heard, and um, but also I think what Amnesty did was also bring attention to the fact that policing was part of the problem.
Yeah.
And the couple of, I had a really good relationship. His name was Alex Neve and Craig Benjamin. They were both, I would say Alex Neve was like, his title was Secretary General. So he was like the head of Amnesty Canada. And Craig was like the researcher. So he did write a lot of the Stolen Sisters report based on his research, but also based on the stories of the families that I did. And there was another woman also who focused on the families in the province of Saskatchewan. And so, once we were able to gather all of that uh, data, right,
Mhm.
stories of the missing and murdered Indigenous women, um, it did um, open up, I guess, um, open up to the world that this was a crisis.
Yeah.
And the numbers of that were coming forward. Even after the report was released in 2004, there was more and more families, because also what I had suggested to Amnesty was, if the families are providing their stories, they're providing their trauma, that they should do something for the families. So
Hmm.
they had a family gathering. We had actually a family gathering at Six Nations, here in my community. Brought all of the families who participated, and it was the first time that all of the families had come together.
Yeah.
And so it was such a powerful gathering for all of the families who shared
Yeah.
the same trauma, being able to voice it and do a lot of healing for them, um, to come together, and they had that kind of support for each other
Yeah.
um, during that time. That was a really powerful time as well. Um, that was just before the release in 2004 that was done. Um, so yeah, just to make the connection back to my own healing. So, so, from 2000 to 2002, and then meeting with all the families, and I was able to share also my own, what had happened to me and all of the traumas that happened to me, because I ended up in violent relationships
Mhm.
as a result of all of that violence as a child.
Yeah.
So, there was one instance where a young woman was um, in a really violent relationship, and she kept going back,
Yeah.
leave, go back, leave, go back, leave, go back.
Hmm.
And they always question why, because he ended up killing her. And, and so I was able to say from my own experiences, these are the reasons why.
Yeah.
Because as a victim, you don't feel that you're worthy. You were trained, with violence that you are nothing and that you don't have a voice, that you don't mean anything. And so when it isn't until you start your healing when you realize that it's his problem,
Right.
right? It's not mine. That's his. That's his own whatever issues that he's dealing with. So I was able to share all of that with the families, also my own personal experiences. And
And I'm sure that
yeah,
made
so
the
like I said, we ended up being very close in many of those families that did share their story.
well, and I would think too is um that would probably make it a little more it would probably make you relatable and kind of like a safe space to
Right.
to express themselves. And good on you and good on them for being brave enough to do it
Yeah,
after years of not being heard.
that's right.
And that's pretty admirable and respectable that they would, well, that you were able to make that connection and allow them to feel safe to share that story.
Yeah.
I think
That's
that's
exactly what it was. That's that safe space for them to share their story, to share their pain and their trauma um and then many of them moving and healing and like just to fast forward. So there's a missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls inquiry. So I advocated for years. Actually wanted a royal commission on the violence against Indigenous women, and that MMIW would be one part of it. But it became an inquiry on MMIWG and Two Spirited, and um, and so they had a circle of families that helped with the inquiry, and a lot of those families were part of Amnesty's report.
Mhm.
And just seeing the shift of their healing to then be advocates for other families, like, it was such a
Right.
powerful thing to see, and to see that they had a voice and that they would air that in the circle and to provide support to other families. And, yeah, so that was really powerful to see. Uh, Many of those families that I was close to that, really became part of a movement, almost like also what I say in our communities as well is a social movement, like this movement of
Mhm.
healing. But we're still in a very still critical stage of um, still MMIW. Uh,
Yeah.
despite all those reports, despite the inquiry,
Yeah.
the systems themselves haven't changed. They haven't been paying. They haven't been implementing. It's still so frustrating that nothing's been done.
Yeah.
Um, but the only positive thing that I've seen, like I said, the families moving forward, and also this social movement by communities, by um, grassroots.
Yeah.
The grassroots spread like wildfire, right?
Yeah.
Across North America, South America. Um, and that was one of the things that I remember noticing in doing the research across Canada in the beginning, that I was connecting with families in Mexico.
Mhm.
Um, you know, the Juarez, uh, the Juarez, women who were murdered there, and I wasn't hearing anything in the U.S.
Yeah.
And there was nothing. And then I think I had met with a few Indigenous women's organizations and women, and then it just like wildfire again. It just like all of a sudden it was story after story after story again in the US.
Yeah.
and now May 4th, in the US is the, the MMIW day, um, and that the honoring the spirits of the women, and in Canada is October 4th with the vigils across the country.
Sisters in Spirit.
The Sisters in the Spirit, yeah.
Mm.
So that's where I see the connections and that movement, that social movement by the grassroots, like really supporting the families and figuring out ways how to bring attention to the issue.
Well, I know, though this will be kind of a weird question, but I'm curious if you think you would still be doing this type of work in the community had you not had that moment after the accident with the shovel, when you had that moment out there on the riverbank with the eagles and the like. I'm curious if this still would have found you.
Yeah, that's a really good question.
I mean, it's kind of hard
Yeah,
to
that's a
answer.
good question. I have never been asked that one before. Uh, Probably not. I would say probably not, because if I didn't deal with my own healing and like things, like listening spiritually, because things opened up for me,
Hmm.
like just those spaces and like different places I would end up, and I would end up in like leadership, uh talking to leadership, or meeting with people with really positions of power and good power,
Hmm.
like things that are moving. And yeah, I don't know if I would have been in those spaces had that not happened.
Yeah, yeah. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. I never thought about that before.
Yeah.
Good question.
Oh, thank you. Um, I think of my own life when my 7-year-old passed away. I was living in Boise, Idaho at the time, and I had family here in Oregon. And I was not a big fan of Boise, Idaho to begin with. It's very conservative, and I'm not that way at all. And so once he passed, there was really nothing to keep me there.
Mm,
But I was in horrible, horrible depression, and
yeah.
like bottle of whiskey a night type of thing, and
Mm,
just,
mhm.
you know, and I mean, I thought I had died basically.
Yeah.
And I met my current partner, Laura, and I was still in bad shape. But uh,
Mm,
now I have a 7-year-old son, and he's like my whole world. He's my best
wow.
friend, and I don't drink anymore, and I take care of myself, and I live in this with this family. And I have to go, I probably wouldn't have been doing this if he had not passed away. I would not be here and in having this different life, and this, it's so strange. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's so yeah, I just because one of the questions I had wrote down was, did you find yourself working in this, or did it find you? And I think maybe both are true.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, because when also I remember during those early years and doing the research, I went to Vancouver and the downtown east side, and that was like a message from the women who were victims of Picton, the serial killer.
Hmm.
And um
Is
yeah,
that
so
the guy that had the farm or whatever?
yeah,
Yeah,
the-
yeah.
yeah, was disgusting.
Hmm.
Um but yeah, their message to me um was to pay attention. And they also, one of the biggest messages, this is like, was really powerful, because they said, this is bigger than you know. Like, and it is. It's like
Yeah.
it's like Oh, it's just so because it's connected to our role as women to Mother Earth, and the violence of Mother Earth is the same as the violence against women. And um and just their messages uh of why, like, why is it happening? Why is it a crisis? And and that the world needs to know.
Right.
So Amnesty was a big part of that, that the world needs to know, because they were on an international basis.
Right.
And um and that connection with them, and maybe again, like you said, um with my role, my name, and choosing me choosing me to be their voice, because I was their voice for a long time. And the families had even said that to me. We need you. We need your voice. Your voice is powerful, and we
Hmm.
need you um to be that leader with in this.
Yeah.
It's like, all right,
Right.
that's not what I was planning to do. Or actually, I don't even know what my plan was, but
Yeah.
um, so in a few years later, um, there was another young woman who was murdered uh by um a bouncer in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. So that family came to me just like 2 weeks after the release. No, it was actually when all of the research was submitted to Amnesty. So it was only 2 weeks after that she had gone missing.
Hmm.
And so I connect really connected with that family as soon, like almost immediately. So a few years down the road, the trial comes up for, um, the guy who murdered her. And so so I always supported the families any opportunity that I could. So I went to the trial and met with supported the family. I go walking into the meeting that they're having with the Crown attorneys, and the mom, her name's oh, Pauline. She she's talking with the Crown, and so the Crown's trying to say that they want the doctor's records. So doctor's records are supposed to be uh, privileged information and not released to the public. So the guy was trying to say that she was an alcoholic, and that was her problem, and that's how she died. So that was his defense, and the judge allowed was going to allow the release the of her doctor's records. So there's this whole other trial within the trial, and whether or not that those those records can be released. So the Crown is telling this to Pauline, and he says, so you need a lawyer to represent you
Yeah.
in this part of the trial. So I'm sitting there, and Pauline looks, well, she's right there. Right? So I'm just there to support her. And then
Yeah.
she puts me on the uh I can't think of the word, but um so I'm like, oh, okay. All right, Pauline, what do you want me to do?
Hmm.
Right, so I'm just there again to support, and it's a Supreme Court, and you have to you have your gowns, and you have to wear your
Yeah.
lawyer garb in the courtroom. And so it was a community in the legal community, indigenous legal community, who ended up gathering all of the stuff that I needed. And I only had overnight to prepare, right, but I already knew the law. I already knew the law because I had already studied it, and I already knew that victims don't have a voice
Right.
in any criminal trial. So this was an opportunity to give Pauline's daughter, her name was Daleen, a voice in the courtroom. Now that was like, again, that relationship with spirit, because I was able to represent Daleen and her spirit in the courtroom. And it was like things were coming out of my mouth that I didn't even, like I hadn't planned the words that came out, and it was about her and the support of her and the reasons why those doctors' reports shouldn't have become public. So it was like, wow, that again, it was like coming out of that space in the courtroom. And, my training as a lawyer, my training and the research I was already doing on victims of violence, and the work I had to do for myself
Yeah.
of violence. Like, just again, those steps of and then that relationship with Daleen and her spirit, and it was amazing. And
All these things converge at one moment
yeah,
for you to
yeah,
help the victim.
yeah,
Wow.
that was just amazing.
And so what was the result?
So the result was the judge made a decision that there was only, I think, a few reports, the doctor's reports, that they did allow, but they couldn't present it publicly, so that the lawyer could review them, but would not, like, it could not be public to the rest of the, so that was the intention.
Yeah.
He was convicted.
Okay, good.
Yeah, he was convicted. Um, yeah, I can't remember what his sentence was, but I know that he was convicted. And yeah, and I'm still close with the family. Like, I'm still close with
Yeah.
Colleen and her husband, Herb, and yeah, it was a powerful, again, another powerful relationship that we established because of that.
hmm
Yeah.
And in 2008, you had your own cousin go missing,
Oh yeah.
correct? And then what
Yeah.
was her name?
Her name was Tashina.
Toshina.
Tashina, and she was pregnant. She was only
Oh
20. Yeah.
gosh.
And she was murdered by another Mohawk man here in our community. So that was devastating. I
I
had
think
been helping the families all the way along, for 4 years. And then it happened in my own family, and my cousin, so my cousin, Tashina's mom, um, I can't remember, but I was doing all my work with all the other families, and I was hardly home.
hmm
And um, so I got word that Tashina was missing, and I was like, what's going on? Like, I came back home and started asking questions, and how long was she missing? What are you doing? Like, I had already 4 years of training, basically,
hmm
of um what should be done when a person goes missing, when a woman goes missing.
hmm
So I was asking those questions, and did she report her missing? Were police involved? Like, are they doing the searches? Like, so we ended up, as soon as I found out, I think within a couple of weeks, we had a press conference here, which is like the first step of, if someone's gone missing. She was gone missing already for 2 months, and she was pregnant,
Right.
right? And they, she was living with her mother, and she had a cell phone, she wasn't communicating, and her mom was like asking even the boyfriend that killed her, where is she? And he lied and said he didn't know. but he killed her and he buried her in his backyard.
Yes.
And he was like a star lacrosse player. Like lacrosse here for us is like, the creator's game. It's like
Right.
you're as soon as you're born, you have a lacrosse stick in your hand.
Yeah.
And yeah, so later on finding out, that he lied, and um yeah, so she was then found murdered. It was about a month after that press conference, so like in April. And yeah, it was devastating. Like I hardly remember because it was so traumatizing. And
Yeah.
I went back to work probably a couple weeks after she was buried. So we have a whole 10-day process of death ceremony. So probably about 2 weeks after I went back to work. And I remember having a meeting with the Minister of Public Safety. And I was always screaming and yelling at the parliamentarians and, ministers of justice, the prime minister. Like, I blamed them all because everything that had happened to these women and their families directly related to the genocidal policies of Canada. And so I was always on them. Like I was banging my head against a felt like I was banging my head against a brick wall every friggin' day
Mm.
because they didn't know.
Yeah.
They don't know anything about our people. They don't know anything about our history. They were never taught, and yet they're in these positions of power and
And
no
seemingly don't
idea.
care to.
And they don't care. They didn't
Yeah.
give a crap.
Hmm.
And so I just remember there was a couple weeks after, and I had a meeting, and I was like I don't even remember what I said. Like but I can visually see this Minister of Public Safety, this white guy sitting in front of me, and his face getting redder and redder and redder, and his eyes bulging out of his head. Whatever I was saying to him, I know that I was so angry, so pissed off, and um, and I know I was blaming him.
Hmm.
And I walked out of there and thinking, I don't even think I can do this anymore because I'm like so angry.
Yeah.
And yeah, so my term as president of the Native Women's Association of Canada, it was an elected position, so I chose not to be reelected in 2009. And so
Hmm.
I ended it. I couldn't do it anymore. It was so it was so harsh to do this work, and then it happened in my own family, and just that trauma, and watching my cousin and her mom um just be totally devastated, not only losing her but losing her baby, like losing grandchild. And because we're a matriarchal society, so she was like the last, like the next generation. So she had a son, but it's the women that carry on the nation, carry on the clan, right? So that was cut off. It was cut off from their clan and their nation. And
Yeah.
yeah, anyway, it was so horrific.
And
Just
and
hear that.
that was going to be my question, but you kind of answered it because you had been having these really personal connections with the families that you worked with, and but then to have it happen right at home, I was going to ask, like, what did that do to your career moving forward? How, it didn't. I guess my question was going to be, did it strengthen your resolve, or were you like, I'm not having an impact at all?
Um, it was a time of mm, I guess it was a time of more healing
Mhm.
because I was like so angry. And also during that time here in the community was reclamation of our territory and our land.
Mhm.
And so there was like a big reclamation here in Caledonia, which is the community right next to Six Nations and the Douglas Creek Estates, and they were going to build a housing project. And so all of that was happening all at the same time. And our leadership asked me to be part of the negotiations,
Mhm.
as a legal advisor to the Confederacy. And then I started seeing all these things, this patriarchy, even of our own men, and how our clan mothers were being treated. And
Yeah.
like it was just so overwhelming. And when I ended my term in September of 2009, I was like already made a decision that I was going to be doing my PhD away from the community. So I went to Calgary, Alberta, did my PhD there away from everything. And it was like I went into hiding for like 2 years.
Yeah.
And it was I had to, for my own well-being, for my own um healing. Like I was so angry. I was so like I couldn't even communicate.
Yeah.
I couldn't even um there was no way I could be a leader anymore. I
Right.
was because I was just thinking of that conversation that I had with the minister of
Yeah.
public safety. Like I don't even remember what I said, but I just know that it was like if I had a gun, I probably would have shot him. Like
Yeah.
that's how angry I was and just that trauma. Um so yeah, I found a counselor. Um I found a counselor at the university. So I was doing my PhD, initial coursework. So I just had housing right on campus. So I went to counseling, I went to class, and I came home. Nobody knew I was there because I was already a national leader, right? And I was like,
Yeah.
already known across the country. It's like, well, nobody knew me there. So
Mhm.
which was a good thing because I
Yeah.
was able to just focus on my own and doing a PhD that was everybody thinks is stressful. It's like, oh no, you haven't dealt with any stress compared to compared to
Yeah.
what I've been dealing with.
Mhm.
And luckily I found a counselor there that just helped me to deal with all of that trauma and loss and anger and hatred. Like I just, oh my God, I just like so much hate because
Yeah.
I'm not a hateful person. And I felt
Yeah.
this heat and I was like, I don't want that. I don't want it. Don't like, so yeah, so she helped me. It was a really good, like things being put in
Right.
my path to help me to deal with you know, all of that crap. And
Yeah.
yeah, so I ended up, finishing my coursework and then going to British Columbia for 4 years. And uh, again, just an opportunity to work also with an organization called Ending
Mhm.
Violence Association of BC, and traveling across to all of the First Nations communities to develop their own community safety plans to address violence.
Mhm.
Right, and it was like a 4-year project, and, traveling in that province was also very healing, like, just the land and the territory, and
Yeah.
being able to go into those territories and work with the leadership also, and, uh, and also then I became, uh, representing, an organization called, the BC Indian Chiefs, um in the inquiry that they were having, missing women's inquiry in British Columbia. and representing the organization. But it fell apart, actually,
Yeah.
that inquiry. And yeah, so there was a lot of really good work that I was able to do in that place in BC.
I
And
know
then
you're
they
not
come back home after that.
um I know you're not a, doctor of gender studies or a psychologist, but this violence that's being perpetrated against Indigenous women is not just being perpetrated by white men, it's being perpetrated by Indigenous men. So, what is going on? As you mentioned, we are traditionally a matriarchal society. What is going on with Native men where I would never put my hands on a woman ever? But I was also raised by my mom and my sisters who were all older. So
Mm-hmm.
that's part of that is just the fear of my big sisters pounding me if they felt like at any time. But they just, that's just what they said. You don't put your hands on a woman ever. What do you think is going on with Native men or men in general that this keeps happening?
Well, it's the patriarchal system is very violent,
Mm-hmm.
right? The colonial patriarchal system, like the history of that, where women were considered property, women were not considered human.
Right.
And so, they violated the women if they didn't do what they were supposed to be, supposed to follow, whatever
Yeah.
their um control. The control, it's right, that's what abuse is power and
Mhm.
control over women. And I think, like, I have studied this and thinking about, well, how did that happen to our men? Because our men, coming from a matriarchal society, women were put on pedestals because women, are the life givers. We carry life, and those are our teachings about respecting women and respecting our grandmothers. And so this was while I was doing my master's in law thesis. So this was like from 94 to 99. I worked on, um, I worked on the Great Law of Peace, and, one of our laws about our matriarchal systems. And when I started looking deeper and deeper into it, and I could see the violence and the impacts of colonization on our people, and seeing the source of where the violence comes from colonization. It comes from patriarchy. It comes from the cycle of violence that, you know, the churches did the same thing, with then the cycle of the residential school system and the violence, that sexual violence and the violence that occurred in residential schools generationally. And, and so it taught us how to be violent, because I don't think it's just the men who are violent. Our women are violent too. Um, and so, but it's a different kind of violence when it comes from women and when it comes from our men. Um, and the gendered violence. So being very specific, right, about the kinds of violence that happens. So I believe that with this generational cycle of violence, that our men have learned to be violent, right? Have learned this power and control because it allowed them, this whole patriarchal system allowed it to happen, right? You have violence, like even this concept of a household, right? And privacy. That's a colonial concept, because in
Mhm.
our ways, everything was a collective understanding. We lived in great big huge longhouses where there's no way that anyone would get away with anything like that.
Yeah.
And there were teachings. So there are teachings from as soon as you're born. There's teachings as you're right in your stages of life. Right? We had rites of passage ceremony. So it honored our young men. It honored the young women when their time came to be an adult. And so there were teachings of a collective from our mothers and our grandmas and our grandpas and our dads and uncles and aunties, right? That everybody had that understanding of a healthy relationship and healthy sexual relationship, because it wasn't shameful,
Yeah.
right? When talking about sex, it wasn't shameful. It was like, this is how you have babies.
Yeah.
Right? And this is how you protect your bodies. This is how, it's a ceremony. A sexual relationship is a ceremony. So honor your spirit during that time. So those are the teachings that were stolen from us in the residential school. Right. So they were there from 5 to like 16. And that's the time, that's the rite of passage ceremonies should have happened. And it wasn't. And you think generationally, like how that over, how many generations that impacted families
Mm-hmm.
where they were not taught, that ceremony wasn't done.
Yeah.
And so that cycle of violence from our, of the men, was learned. One really good, just a message, while I was president of the Native Women's Association, because I was getting so angry also with our men, and white men. That's probably culminated in that conversation I had with that minister. It was just like,
Yeah.
but one of the really positive experiences that I had, was being invited to this opening of an organization called what's it called? I can't think of the word, but they had these little squares of uh leather,
Mm-hmm.
and it was the men who are taking on the responsibilities to be honorable men, indigenous men. Um and so I went because I kept praying, I kept asking, like, come on, you guys, like, stand up.
Yeah.
Like, stand up and protect our women. Like, that's what you're supposed to be. That is your role and your responsibility. Like support us. Like, don't beat us down, because that's also what's happening even in the leadership, in my leadership role. Even our
Mm-hmm.
own leaders of our men were like, they did not like me
Yeah.
because I was bringing up issues that they didn't want to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what I kept asking, where's our protectors? Where's our men to stand up and start saying that's enough? Um, and so that's what it happened. This campaign. Oh, I can't remember the name of it. It'll come to me. So they had a press conference when the campaign first started, and I heard them say, yes, this cycle of violence, this violence has occurred to all of our people, but now I'm going to take the responsibility to stand up. Like, I cried when I heard
Mm-hmm.
that, because that's what I was asking for.
Yeah.
And it was so powerful to hear that, and that they were going to take on that responsibility of protecting the women and standing up and paying attention and doing what they needed to do and to educate, right?
Yeah.
The rest of the, even just the male uh, population, indigenous men, um, taking on that responsibility. So, oh, Moose Hide, that's what it was called. the Moose Hide campaign.
Moose Hide. Okay.
Yeah. And I know that they're still in existence and they're still doing the work. So it was a really, it was a powerful time as well when I was thinking like of my own healing at the time, and thinking about our men to also heal and deal
Hmm.
with the violence, and be the men that we knew, that to be the warriors, right?
Right.
That's the warriors is our protectors,
Yeah.
the real warriors, not the violent warriors.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things I really had to reconcile about my own dad was I love him dearly. Me and him were very close, but I know he was not a saint, and a lot of it had to do with violence against his partners. And I never saw it. I don't remember him and my mom being together. They split when I was really young, but
Oh yeah.
stories that she told me, and one time I witnessed it, and for one, I knew that was never going to be me. And but it was, even now, it's as much as, because the dad that parted ways 3 years ago was not that guy. He was very gentle and very
Hmm.
considerate and very generous. And he had a past. And that's been really tough, especially when it's violence against people I care for.
Hmm.
That's a very sticky, muddy situation to try and figure out, because it never happened to me.
Right.
He never laid a finger on me.
Hmm.
And I knew him as just, great guy, but I also knew, and I knew everything else too. I don't know. It
Yeah.
was hard. And he was not the type. I think, as a lot of men of his generation were or are, they're not gonna get a therapist and sort through
Right.
all of their trauma. And because he was removed from his family, him and my uncle, when they were 3 and 2,
Wow.
and they grew up in a foster situation
Yeah.
that was really that abusive. And uh so he had his own trauma that he was dealing with. And uh that doesn't excuse the behavior, but yeah, so that's been a tough one for me. But it's one that my kids are not going to have to worry about
Right.
dealing with down the road.
Yeah. And I stopped it in my generation too, like making sure that that did not happen in my home anymore, or happen to me anymore.
Mhm.
Uh, I'm raised my daughter. Um, she's pretty tough. She's pretty tough. She's tougher than me.
Mhm.
Uh, and yeah, she would never put up with that. So my grandkids, and I'm a great grandma now. My great granddaughter just turned 2 yesterday. Um,
Great
and
grandma Dr. Jacobs.
yeah,
That's a great title.
yeah, they'll never see it. I can't see that happening now.
Mhm.
And but we're also really working hard to make sure that she doesn't.
Yeah,
That's a lot of work.
yeah.
Because of, like in the community here at Six Nations, there's still so much violence, and um, alcoholism and drug addiction, and all those things that happen in our communities now as a result of what I say is the result of colonization and the cycle of violence. And so uh really working hard to uh create that safety for my family now.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's a lot
Yeah.
of work.
When this podcast idea came about, it used to be like a documentary idea that I had, and I
Yeah.
wanted to walk across North America
Oh,
and
yeah.
visit different nations and stay with them. And part of it was because, like I said before, I was raised by a white mom, and I
Mhm.
didn't know a lot of traditions, and I didn't know a lot of ceremony. And So
Mhm.
it was essentially going to be my own kind of personal walkabout, but each episode was going to have a different theme. So there would be alcoholism slash drug use, there would be obesity, there would be the MMIWG, um, all of these different things. And now it's bounced all over the place when I realized how many people feel like they're living in between cultures. And um, um, I'm not sure why I brought that up just now. But either way, um, the
It
MMIW,
was your journey. To me, it's your journey of what it is that, um, like you said, visit again. Like you were gonna visit in all these different communities. So
mhm,
that caught my attention,
right?
right? To have that kind of experience on the land. Like you can do this. I think this is really, I think your podcast will be really successful because of all of the issues and the people that you're going to have. But I think being on the land, being
Hmm.
on the territory, uh, I think will heighten that.
Right.
But that's my, you know, just my own thoughts about visiting. Like, like I don't think I would not have had the kinds of experiences I've had if I didn't go into those specific territories and the lands
Right.
that I visited
Yeah,
and the spirits from those territories.
that's true. Yeah. And that was part of it too. Yeah. I mean, it's one thing for me to sit here and say the Pine Ridge Reservation here in the United States is one of the most, it's well below the poverty line and has been for a long time. It would be
I've
another
been
thing
there.
for, have you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
To
And,
Sweetgrass.
mhm,
So my one of my friends, really close friends, was in a relationship with Orville Looking Horse. So he has two kids here in the community here. And so he actually asked me during my time as president of Native Women's Association to come and do a presentation during his ceremony,
mhm,
the White Buffalo Calf Woman Pipe ceremony.
yeah.
So I went out to the ceremony and it was really powerful because I carried a couple of wampum belts with me that were gifted to me. And one of them was the women's nomination belt. And that's
Mhm,
part of our, the great law of peace and the journey of the peacemaker. And so I brought that belt and the two-row wampum belt, which is, the belt that was created with the early colonizers.
mhm,
Um, yeah, so I brought those uh, to his community and laid them right on the bundle.
yeah.
I That was such a powerful ceremony. Um, and like just it's like it lit up the wampum. There weren't real wampum. It was a
Mhm,
replica that I carried, but those beads lit up
yeah.
like spiritually and and they were plastic or maybe glass, maybe a couple of glass beads. Um, but I carry them with me and go through security at airports,
Yeah.
and they would tear it apart because they thought it was metal or
Mhm,
they didn't know what it was.
yeah.
They were like shining.
Mhm,
They were like lighting up.
yeah.
They still do. That was
Mhm,
quite a few years ago when I was there, and I share that when I present on the women's nomination belt, and I let people hold it because there's the power of the strength of the women, and especially the women, and bringing back their power is
yeah.
was a major part of that message.
Yeah. Um, okay, I don't want to take up a ton more of your time. I know it's getting late over there and you got a big couple months coming ahead.
Yeah.
So we did kind of touch on this a little bit, but when you're doing this really heavy emotional work, how do you stay grounded emotionally and
Yeah.
spiritually?
I'm always asked that question.
Yeah.
It's an easy one because I've always been grounded in how I was raised and the ceremonies, even our ceremony about death, ceremonies about grief. We have, I've been taught those, um, and they help me. So we have, like, as a people, we've had so much loss, so much trauma, um, and myself, even personally, my own traumas. Um, but it's those ceremonies that help me, that have helped me to survive and help me to move forward. And that's also because of my relationship with spirit, with my relationship with our ancestors,
Yeah.
because I always ask them to help me, right?
Mhm.
Help me to stay strong, help me to um, maintain my ability to carry your voice. Because a lot of times it's their voice, not sometimes mine. Like, I'm just the mouthpiece for them. And um and always giving thanks and always honoring them, um because it has been, you know, so devastating for our people, um on a, on that scale of genocide,
Yeah.
and the losses. And um but again, that's what carries me forward, is uh knowing that we have
Yes.
survived genocide. And I always say we need to celebrate. Like, we need to celebrate that, to celebrate life, to celebrate our relationships, to celebrate, like, moving on the positive and having a good mind and
Mhm.
maintaining our ways and having healthy relationships and healing from all of that crap,
Yeah.
and educating. So
Mhm.
educating has been a really powerful part of my life, and not only my own learning and educating, but educating others. So every
Mhm.
opportunity I get, I educate, right? So it happens on many different levels, and returning to ceremony, being able to be in spirit with, during our ceremonies helps. Being on the land, just laying on the land, laying on
Mhm.
our mother with that support. Those are the things that have helped me to survive and to keep going.
What I think is really cool right now is that, as at least in my lifetime, like native representation in media is at an all-time high, and we're not just being represented as the Plains Indian gazing off into the
Right.
distance with his headdress and his stoic
Yeah.
nature, or the we're being represented because it's natives in the media.
Right.
It's native actors, it's native directors,
Yeah.
native writers, and representing us is in a much more complete way.
Yeah.
And like, wow, these people are really funny. These people are more than
Yeah.
just
I totally
they're
agree.
they're more than just this sad story of
Yeah.
being conquered or whatever people say. And I really like where we're at right now. And I want it to get to the point where, like Reservation Dogs is a good example, where it was a great show for natives by natives, but you could just cut that part off and be like, that was a great show.
Yeah.
And non-native people loved it. And so I want to get to the point where it's like, that's just a good movie. Oh, and it
Yeah.
happens to be about natives or by natives
That's
or
right.
whatever. Um,
So being educated also. I
mhm,
actually watched your podcast. That's my friend David.
mhm,
Uh, and I thought it was a really good um, example of that, when you guys were having that conversation about being in those movies, even as, as the leaders
Mhm.
also in David's description of, driving through the set uh,
Yeah.
of smoke signals and
Yeah.
the corner.
Mhm.
Yeah, I really believe that you know the impacts of colonization and genocide and everything that's happening today, that the karma, I believe in karma. And I'm really worried what's going to happen to white people
Yeah. Maybe
because of
the
that karma,
maybe the
what they've
mothership's gonna
done.
come down and it's gonna be a bunch of 8 foot tall natives like,
Yeah.
hello, colonizers. We're
Yeah.
back.
Hello.
Um, so how do you feel about the movement moving forward? Are there some
Oh,
is the next generation of women coming up and
oh yeah.
yeah.
Things are going to shift.
Hmm.
And uh that's what I mean about karma, because we've been put in a a horrible space, of genocide, like you were saying, like that's going to end. Like you've already identified through media, through movies, Indigenous people are taking the lead in everything. And, um, and the power of that, um, you know, things are going to shift, and the education system is shifting,
Yep.
where now they are learning the truth in the like slowly, but
Hmm.
it's happening. More and more of our people are becoming educated and putting in places of power within the institutions, whether it's government or education or in the health systems. Like it's gonna move quickly.
Hmm.
Um, and our young people, like I think of um my own family, like the strength of my own kids and my grandkids, and their strength, and
Yeah.
they're not going to put up with anything.
Yeah.
No way. They're not going to put up with all that.
Yeah.
um, and also, like, even traditionally, so we've reclaimed our rites of passage ceremonies, and the language is being reclaimed, and the language courses, and the indigenous courses everywhere. And things are definitely going to shift. And also because the non-indigenous people are, I think of this in myself and my own education and educating. So educating first year law, a mandatory course to all first year law students. um, and I think of, with them being educated, they're in their 20s, right?
Hmm.
So they're being also educated about the truth. And so, and I feel like they're more aware, and also they're not going to put up with racism anymore.
Right.
And so they're going to take the lead. Like they're going to be in positions of power in the future where they're going to be able to resolve things a lot easier because they're aware
Hmm.
and because they're willing to be allies. I think that, like, I really believe that shift will happen quickly.
Yeah. My son's first grade teacher, because they did a show and tell, and he brought this like Pokemon stuffy that he got at a powwow, but I mean, it looks like this on the, and so he brought that, and the kids in his class were like, "What the hell's up with that Pokemon?" Well, they didn't say it like that, obviously, but
Yeah.
and he's, and my son was up there front and center, loud and proud. I'm a member of the Klamath tribe, and I got this at my tribe's restoration powwow this summer. And they're just like, what is, they had no clue what he was talking about. And
Yeah.
but he was up there so proud, just like,
That's
I'm
awesome.
native and this is my tribe, and me and my dad go to this powwow. And so the his teacher, we just had his conference yesterday, asked um if I ever wanted to come share anything at the
Oh, yeah.
at the school. And I was like, well, I happen to have this children's book about the actual Thanksgiving with the Wampanoag tribe. And I was like, can I share that? And she was like, I think you should. I think they need. And so I'm going to be doing that next month.
Cool.
Yeah, so I'm really excited about that, and I'm going to try not to embarrass him, but I mean, it's going to be hard not to. Like, uh, you know, I'm going to be.
Yeah.
And I almost overwhelm him now. I love being a
Oh, yeah.
dad so much, and he's such a
Yeah.
good kid. Like,
That's so awesome.
yeah. So what can let's have a couple more questions here. What can Indian and non-Indian people do beyond thoughts and prayers? And nothing was wrong with thoughts and prayers. I'm big on thoughts and prayers, but what's
Mhm.
something tangible we can do to help further the MMIWG movement along?
Just to be educated, like to learn, read, like read the MMIW inquiry report
Hmm.
um, here in Canada, because it applies in the US. Like there, you know, we existed as Indigenous people way before a border
Hmm.
was forced in our territories.
Yeah.
To learn that history, um, like all of there's so many inquiry reports with all of the research, with all of the history. Like those are basic understandings. Like read Amnesty's report.
Yeah.
Um,
Which is called Stolen Sisters, by the way.
Stolen Sisters. Yeah.
Which is such a great name because it really goes, whoa, whoa, that's attention grabbing. That
Yeah.
it's not sanitized. It's very
Right.
much like this is, but
That's it.
yeah. Um,
Yeah. And I always say, based on territory. So when I say to non-Indigenous people, when they ask that question, and I ask, do you know whose traditional territory you live on? Do
mhm,
you know that you have benefited from colonial laws by having a home in those territories?
yeah,
Do you know that history? Do you know the history of the doctrine of discovery and how you have been you have benefited as a result of that? Um, do you know your treaty? Do you know the treaty territory? Do you know about the relationship between Indigenous peoples and non-Indigenous peoples? Do you know that history?
mhm,
Uh, do you know any of the Indigenous peoples in your territory that can also educate you about who they are? Because the education system has been so colonized,
yeah,
right? They never taught any of that in us, but some still don't. So it's like, to me, it has to be in order to be a good ally is to learn about the history and the treaty history, and whose traditional territory do you live on. Like those are basic first steps.
mhm.
Hmm.
Yeah. I would say that would make you a good Indigenous person too. I
Oh
know a
yeah.
lot about my tribe, and I don't know a whole lot about anybody else's. And my tribe is about 5 hours south of here, so
Oh yeah.
um, yeah, I don't know whose land I'm on currently, but uh, so that's good. Yeah, and also I think it's fair to say that's research that our allies should do on their own. And
Right.
it's not, it's, I don't think it should be our job to educate them
True.
necessarily. I mean,
True.
I don't
But
know.
I
There,
think
you go.
sometimes it's also some of the history is also not right.
Very true.
So
Very true.
it depends on what they're learning. So we can guide them. Like
Sure.
I can say, like we can guide them on the issues that they need to learn. And because there's also, we're dealing with the pretendianism now.
Right.
Like that's also in academia, where we have white people who have written about us, which is not always right.
Right.
And so also being cautious about what you're researching and reading. And I think with the guidance of our people, we should be able to to give them that kind of guidance of the truth. Like, because we
Yeah.
are living in this era of pretendingism.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So last question. And you've probably done this in your personal life, but maybe now publicly, all of the thousands of missing and murdered and Indigenous women and children and Two-Spirit, what would you say to them right now?
Hmm. Well, the first thought that comes to me is, we hear you. I've heard you. I've heard your messages um, of bringing attention um, to what happened to you. Um, I've worked my ass off to bring attention to the public. Um, I acknowledge and give thanks to them for their sacrifice, because their spirit was sacrificed as a result, right, of their deaths or of being missing. Um, that I acknowledge their role in that and bringing that the messages forward, and also the messages of family, like of healing our families. Like, to me, that to them that their message was to bring our families back, to love, to learn how to love, because we were devastated um, by not learning about that over
Yeah.
generations.
Yeah.
So it's like they're reminding us about that love and family, and returning to our traditions, returning to the identification and strength of our nations.
Yeah.
And so I want to thank them for that.
Totally. My connection um, to this movement is, well, obviously I'm an Indigenous person, but the more personal connection is uh, my dad's partner when he passed away, Millie. Her sister went missing in Denver, Colorado,
Mm.
and this went on for months and months. And then the day my dad passed away, I mean, minutes afterwards, she got a call that they had found her
Wow.
sister, uh, and what they found was defensive wounds on her body. So uh,
Yeah.
she just completely broke down. She just lost her partner and then her
Yeah.
sister, and
Wow.
it was really so that was me getting a much closer look at it and seeing the impact that it has.
Hmm.
And it really is um, it seems like it's an issue that should be, I mean, it should be a non-issue.
Yeah,
It would be nice if this wasn't a discussion at all. Um,
that's right.
and um, the centuries of looking the other way and burying it and stifling the voices, silencing them, um, I think with this movement can be undone. And I think that's, and not just the families heal, but we as a people all heal together.
Right.
So yeah, thank you so much for not just your time here with me tonight, but decades and decades of the work you've been doing. it's been a real honor to talk to you, and
Thank you.
I really appreciate you just for the work you've done. And I'm gonna have to. I need to send David a cup of coffee or something for connecting us.
Yeah,
Yeah,
good
he
idea.
just brought it up out of the clear blue sky and then sent me your Facebook, and
Yeah,
it happened that quick. But
that's funny.
I'm so honored to talk to you, and I'm so privileged to talk to you. And thank you so much for everything you've done over the years.
Thank you.
Enjoy your trip to New Zealand and Fiji, and uh, hopefully you get I don't want you to get a sunburn, but I hope you get a chance to get some sun and some
Oh yeah,
relaxing in there too.
that's my plan.
All right, great.
All right. Well, thank you for the opportunity. It's good to meet you.
Good to meet you. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank
Good
you.
night.
Good night.